Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Todd Clint's SharePoint podcast. I am your host, Todd Clint, and I didn't put my intro in the notes, and I can't remember how it goes. Episode number 364, recorded live on Monday, November 13th, 2017. Once again, I am Todd Clint, and as ever, I'm honored to be joined by that guy. Tell him who you are, Shane.
Hi, my name is Shane Young. I am the guy who has to sit here and persevere through all of Todd's technical difficulties, all of his vocabulary difficulties, and generally just problems dealing with life.
Lack of preparation difficulties.
Oh, lack of preparation. That's another one.
Like not having my notes done.
Yeah. So if you'd like to contact me and talk about how terrible all that is for me, I would appreciate it. You can hit me up on Twitter at Shane's Cows or email me through Bold Zebras, who's over there, so you can't see him today, but shane.young at boldzebras.com. And thanks to Dave Aykroyd for reminding me that I cannot say the word orange or poem or poem or whatever that stupid word is. I hate you all.
Dumb words. Yes, and Shane jokes about that, but I can confirm that just within the last 48 hours, Shane has gotten an email from somebody talking about how they listen to the podcast and how I suck and he's great. So it does happen. And it didn't even, like, his mom will email those in, and I've gotten used to her style. I can recognize when she typed, but this is somebody different. This was something else.
I keep telling you, you need to get on Fiverr, right? I just pay some guy over in, foreign lands, $5 a pop to send those emails.
I've watched Homeland. I see how those click farms and all that work. I know. Yep, that's money well spent. So on to production notes. I am way behind. So this is podcast 364. I think the most recent one out on the internet is 361. So here in about 28 minutes, I'm going to be not one, not two, but 3 podcasts behind. So I look forward to that.
I think the best part of that is I foreshadowed it in the previous episode when I told people, the Xbox One comes out on Tuesday, or for those of you that are listening to the recorded version, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's all true. But 362 is almost finished. I almost had that done last week and kind of forgot about it. Been busy doing some consulting stuff and getting wrapped up in that, but we'll hopefully get this one out soon. So I'm guessing it's November 2017 now. So is 2019 too optimistic? Nah, I think we're fine. But other than that, production's going well. We're still going to rename it. We're still looking at that. We've still got some of those things going on. We've just both been busy the last couple of weeks and have not gotten that all finalized. But once again, we need to design some new cover art. And if you are artistically inclined and want to help us with our cover art, we've got an idea. We just don't have the ability to make it happen. Reach out to one of us, Todd at toddclint.com, or whatever Shane's email address is. I forget because I won't email him. Reach out to one of us and we'll get you some ideas on what we think it should look like.
Well, I mean, based on the memes that are going in the Slack chat room right now, I want to go with one of these, right? I mean, this last one is by our buddy Jeff. That's just perfect.
They all have a theme, and I don't know. This is a family-friendly podcast, but it's one of those things that everybody does. I think is probably the same. There's an emoji for it. Yeah.
I think I have a book upstairs. Yeah, I taught my kids how to do it, right?
Yep, everybody does it. That's what I hear. That's what I told my kids. On to topics, because once again, Shane is a man with an active social life, and we need to get him going. And so we'll talk about that. So for the topics, the reason you were all forced to suffer with Shane last week is because I was on my way. I think at this time, I'd have to look at the time. No, I was in Slovenia last week. Yeah. So I was speaking at the Thrive Conference in Slovenia, my second year running at that thing, and it was a great time. So just a quick recap. I flew into Zagreb, Croatia, because I'm a worldly guy. Flew into Zagreb, met Tony Francola at the airport. He was kind enough to come to the airport. He's the guy that is the co-founder of the company that writes the SharePoint document SP.kit and all kinds of other things now. Their company's huge now. But he met me at the airport. We hung out for a while we were waiting for some other people there. He brought me some European chocolates, which have been a big hit at the Clint household. 2 big boxes of chocolates. It's very good stuff. So I'll have some stuff to talk about with Tim here in the future. And then met some folks, Brett Lonsdale and some other folks whose names I would slaughter if I tried to say them, so I'm not going to try to pronounce them. But we road tripped across Croatia and across Slovenia from Zagreb to Ljubljana. It was like a bad, buddy trip. We got stopped at border security, and I had to pee, but I didn't have any money, and it was fun. It was a good time. So then did a tour on Tuesday. The conference was Wednesday and Thursday. Did a tour on Tuesday of a couple of things. So much like the Swedish conference that I always go to, Branka, the one who runs the Slovenian conference, is very proud of Slovenia, and there's a bunch of great things there, and she wants to make sure that foreign speakers get a chance to get out and see some of these things as opposed to just getting stuck in the hotel room like we often do. And so she set up a couple of tours for us. We toured a castle that was built into the side of a cliff. Something that OSHA would never allow to be built today. I can only imagine how that happened. And it was built over the course of like 300 years. But the coolest thing ever, so it's just this castle built into a cliff. A couple of cool things about it, despite the fact that it's a castle built into the side of a cliff. Number one, it was used in a Jackie Chan movie. And so you can go out to YouTube and see parts of this Jackie Chan movie. I think it was called Armor of God or something like that. From scenes from this, and it's all very obvious and it's very cool because I was just there and Jackie Chan was there. And there's also this legend of, so this thing's built into the side of a cliff on a mountain. There was some Slovenian badass back in the day. He did some stuff, kind of a Robin Hoodish sort of guy, but the bad guy who was in charge of the king or whoever was, going to kill this guy, and he held up in this castle in the side of a cliff, and they couldn't get there from here. They couldn't get the guys in this, and so he held up there for a year and a day. And unbeknownst to the bad guys that were trying to get him, he had tunnels on the other side of the castle that got to the other side of the hill. So he was getting food and, TV shows and all that kind of stuff from the other side of the hill, all the while the bad guys. And it's just this great story of how that all happened. So we did that, and then we also toured a cave, and it was the second largest cave in Slovenia. Me not knowing much about the caves in Slovenia, I had drilled. But it was a pretty cool thing. We took a train 2.5 kilometers, which I think is like 7 years in Imperial. I forget how the translation goes. But 2.5 kilometers into the bowels of this cave, and then toured all that, so that was kind of cool. The bad thing about both of those is that while we were touring both of those things, it was 40 and raining.
Wait, 40 our temperature or 40 their temperature?
Yeah, 40 their temperature is like the surface of the sun. So it was 40 our temperature. Yeah. So very cold and rainy. And as you can imagine, castles built in the 13th century don't have heating so much. So it was a little chilly, a little wet. And I don't know if you've ever toured a cave or anything like that, but all these caves underground are built by rainwater coming through the soil and then washing out the limestone. So that means if it's raining up top, the whole reason there's a cave to be in is because that rainwater can get down to where you're at. So it was a mite wet down in the old cave. But very cool. Had a great time. And then the conference itself was at a resort out in the mountains. And so we went out there Tuesday night, had a great time. I did sessions on PowerShell with Office 365 and OneDrive for Business and all that with Office. Had a great time. I sat in on a bunch of sessions. Spence Harbar was there. I sat in on a couple of his sessions. There was some people doing sessions on disaster recovery and patching and all those kind of things. All these things I get all excited about. Went to those, and it was a really good time. Had a lot of fun.
Did you understand any of the stuff Spence was talking about, or just straight over your head?
Well, he does have a thick accent, so yeah, it is tough to just. Oh, you meant the content. Oh, yeah. So it was actually one of the sessions that he did at Ignite, and so I watched the video from Ignite, and then needed to watch it in person again to kind of get, you know how it is. But one great thing about the session, so this was on using MIM with SharePoint 2016. So we've been, you and I have been doing SharePoint since it was just a wee little product. So in 2007, we had the user import that just did the pull into AD, pull all the users off, quick like a bunny, always worked, always fast.
Always worked.
But fairly limited. Did exactly one thing, did it well, did it fast, but could do nothing else. So in 2010, they drop FIM in on us, which does a whole bunch of things, but just mad at the world, just hates everything and everybody, and didn't work worth a poop. And then 2013, we had them both, so we could do the angry FIM or the happy SharePoint 2007 stuff. And then in 2016, they took FIM out, so we're back to where we were 10 years ago. The bad news is, if starting in 2010, you got used to doing those FIMI things, you can't do them anymore with SharePoint 2016. And so Spence's session was all on how to do those things, how to implement MIM, which you get a free license for if you have SharePoint 2016, how to get MIM integrated into SharePoint 2016 to do all these other things. And so it was very interesting seeing how it all wires up, because Spence has been doing identity in SharePoint forever. So, I mean, he's in there and he's in just showing all kinds of crazy things. I learned a lot. The good news about that is all of that stuff, the wiring to get MIM working with SharePoint, is freely available in GitHub. So there's a PnP tools thing in GitHub, and I can put the link in the show notes. So all that's out there. And then he's got a bunch of PowerShell scripts for getting it configured. Good stuff. And again, I recommend watching the Ignite video on that one too.
You know, and listen to you explain it. Maybe I just figured out what's wrong with SharePoint 2016, right? All this, it's back to the way it used to be stuff. So really SharePoint 2016 is the hipster brother of the SharePoints. No one likes hipsters. No one likes SharePoint 2016. We've solved the problem why no one's implementing it.
SharePoint 2016 is the SharePoint with the big bushy beard and the skinny jeans.
Yeah, well, you know, and so speaking of skinny jeans, we all know about my love and affection for my good sweatpants.
Only the good ones, yeah.
So I've been trying to replace those, and once again, my mutant height, you know, 6'4", apparently is where, like 6'2" is where clothes stop fitting. Apparently, I can't find sweatpants that are long enough, but the biggest problem is that all the new sweatpants are these like skinny tapered bottoms. I forget what they call them, but they don't make just normal sweatpants that, you know, your feet fit in now. They're like skinny bottoms. It's damn hipsters. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I also have had my own sweatpants battles in the last 24 hours. So my daughter does this thing at school called Girls on the Run. It's a girl power thing that happens to have a little bit of running with it. And yesterday was the big end of the season 5K thing. And so you have to have a buddy run with you. So I've been doing those with her. So we're doing it, but it's like 40 degrees and it's cold. And I don't run outside when it's cold because I'm a big wuss, but apparently we couldn't have this Girls on the Run thing on treadmills. So I had to run outside and it was cold, and I haven't bought sweatpants in the last couple of years. So I don't have any sweatpants in the same size as my body is. So I had these sweatpants that fit me back when I weighed 50 pounds more than I do now. It looked pretty ridiculous.
See, and if you go to the local Dick's or something now, they make they're called joggers, right? That's what you call the ones with the little tight bottoms. So you could have bought some joggers and had tight bottom and been all set.
I should have. It was cold out there. And the other thing that stinks about the whole thing is I've run outside when it's that temperature, but I run at my speed, so I get warm. Running at her speed, I was not able to keep warm. But yeah, so the sweatpants problem is a real thing, Shane. I empathize with you.
It's good, because there should be a chart on my wall. You know, it was a number of days since last time Shane didn't wear sweatpants today. I don't know what the number would be. It'd be a big number.
We'd need, yeah. So one other thing about the Thrive Conference, I know I talk about it a lot. It's they take great care of us over there, and we get to see cool things. But this year they took it above and beyond. They really, really sucked up to me. They gave me a blue shirt, so I've got a blue shirt that I can add to the and then if I get chilly. And they didn't give this to us until the end, which is kind of funny. But I got a coat. It's a very nice coat, very warm, very fuzzy. It's got pockets, but they're like fuzzy lined pockets. Love these pockets. So good times. Good times.
There you go. Todd gets excited about blue shirts. Everyone suck up to him, send him a blue shirt. He'll do whatever you want.
Give me a blue shirt. Okay, so enough about me gushing about Slovenia. I could go on all day. Let's talk about a couple of tech things. You got time for some tech? We got 16 minutes till you.
Yeah, you know, you did a good job taking half the show to talk about your adventures.
Now let's take some time to talk about me.
Well, one would argue that in the next iteration of the show, we're going to have the talk about Todd session at the end, not the beginning of every episode. But I don't know. You guys let us know on the old Twitters if you think that'd be a good or a bad change.
I don't think we have to choose. I think we can have the talk about Todd section at the beginning and the end. I think
that was your mom's vote. You're absolutely right.
This is all true. A couple of tech things. So one of the things Shane and I have been working on today is I've been doing battle for the last couple of days with Power Pivot. And I'll have it on the ropes, and then it has me on the ropes. Let's be honest, I'm always on the ropes. But one of the things that we were doing today, we were troubleshooting some network issues because we think we got all the account stuff figured out, the permission stuff, but we still having problems. And I got to use one of the lesser known, lesser appreciated PowerShell commandlets, Test-NetConnection. So Test-NetConnection is sort of analogous to the old Windows ping command that we know and love. But of course, in typical PowerShell fashion, it's 14 times longer to type, but it does way more things than ping does. So what Test-NetConnection allowed me to do was I had some services running on a box, and Shane had the idea that maybe the firewall was getting in the way, and I thought I had all the firewall rules correct. But what I was able to do with Test-NetConnection is not just make sure that I can get to the machine, but whether I can get to a very specific port on the machine, and allowed me to verify that the firewall rule was hitting a service on that end. And then I had another client that had a different type of connection. I was able to verify that that did or did not work as well. So very, very fun little tool, and I think not enough people know about that one and use it all the time.
Yeah, right. It reminds me of a combination of ping, as you point out, but then also if you ever used NC, right, Netcat.
Yep.
To kind of port explore and things like that. It's kind of a meld of those two without having the cool name of Netcat. So
yeah. So that's the PowerShell tip of the day is Test-NetConnection. Another thing that I do with that one, because again, everything in PowerShell is objects. I've got this little one-liner script that when I reboot a server, it uses Test-NetConnection and waits till the server goes down, and then it hits me a thing and then tells me when the server comes back up. Because if you run a ping window and you look away for a minute and you miss the could not connect, you never know when the server actually rebooted. So this one, does me green dots until the server reboots, and then does red dots until the server comes back up, and then does green dots again. So that's all due to the power of Test-NetConnection. So
sounds like a video for me to make this week.
There you go. After we get this Power Pivot thing figured out, no videos for you until we get Power Pivot done.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of PowerShell, so one of the things that I did last week was the PnP session for that. And I was talking to a couple of people, and this has come up a couple of times, not often, but I've seen some pushback from people who like administrators like you guys in the audience want to use the PnP PowerShell because it's the coolest, but your boss or whoever won't allow you to install it on your servers or your desktops or whatever. And it doesn't come up a lot, but it does come up once in a while. So part of that is that in order to install this as a module that you get from the PowerShell gallery, you have to have permission on the box to install modules. So I know, Shane, I think you've bumped up against that a couple of times.
Yeah, consulting for the financial institution that shall not be named, right? They needed me to do all these magical things. I couldn't have server access, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And it took me 3 days to be able to get access to be able to run the line, install module, SharePoint PnP PowerShell 2013. Yeah, it was very annoying.
Yeah. So that's one of them. But that's not PnP specific. And then the other one is some people just had problems with the fact that it wasn't a Microsoft tool. Like they were okay with the SharePoint Online, but the PnP, since it was a community thing. So I added a slide in that deck that talked about why the PnP was okay. And I mean, it's a whole deck. Or a whole slide. It's got a bunch of stuff. But some of the highlights, if anybody's having this, the two people that own that project are Vesa Juvonen. I always mess up his pronunciation of his last name, but he is at Microsoft. He is a senior program manager for SharePoint engineering at Microsoft. He's an MCM. He was one of the MCM instructors. Did a bunch of that kind of stuff. He is the guy that owns it, so he's like the adult supervision. And if anybody knows Vesa, he fits that role well. So everything is done. I mean, the whole idea of the patterns and practices project is to show the best way to do things, and so they're very aware of that. The second guy that is the big dog on that is Erwin van Hunen from Germany. He is not a Microsoft employee, but he works at a company called Rencore, and Rencore's primary product is a product that analyzes code and tells you if it's written well and written securely and all that kind of stuff. So the code itself is above reproach from that aspect. So I was talking to Erwin about putting the slide together, and I said, so have you ever run the PnP stuff through your own tool? He's like, not all of it. And I'm like, Erwin, come on. And so it turns out they do have to do a couple of things that are not necessarily above board, but it was at Microsoft's behest, and they have Microsoft's approval because they do some things that the API needs to be fought with a little bit. But it's all, it's all been approved by engineering team and all that stuff. Another thing that makes this very legitimate is starting this month. And again, I think I just got the email that they released the new commandlets today or something. It's PowerShell. It's a module, and it's signed. You know, we've talked about that before. Starting this month, it will be signed by Microsoft's key. So it used to have its own key. It's actually being signed by Microsoft's key now. So that's, you know, all that. And the other thing that I found interesting was the metrics on this, and Erwin was telling me about this at Ignite. The PowerShell, the PnP PowerShell commandlets hit the API endpoint of Office 365 a billion times a month. There are a billion times that happens. So all those people can't be wrong.
All those looping scripts that I've written apparently have paid off, right?
There you go.
No, yeah, the PnP stuff it's spectacular, and it'll be interesting though them changing the signing key, as that's going to cause more issues. Because one of the problems, right, is moving between versions. You know, upgrading. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I had a client a couple weeks ago. He had somehow installed two versions, and I think he installed like the 2016 and the 2013 on the same machine. And he, for the life of him, could not figure out how to unwind that mess. And finally, I was like, look, dude, you know, I walked him through the process of rip it out, close PowerShell, open it up, rip it out again, right? You just iterate until it can't find anything else to rip out. Then you rip it out one more time. And
yeah,
we got it worked out, but it's a challenge.
It was funny. So Erwin and Penny Coventry and I had that exact conversation about that exact problem. Having only ours was having multiple versions of the same, you know, module in there. And so the way that happens, I think, because Erwin hadn't done it, because he's smarter than me, so he just doesn't get himself into those kind of problems. But what it comes from is if you do the install module, if you have a version installed and you do install module instead of update module, it says blah 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 scary words dash force. You're like, oh yeah, up arrow dash force. And what those scary words say is you've got a version installed, and I can install two versions side by side, but it's a really bad idea. But if you use dash force, I'll do it. And you're like, words, dash force. And then that does it, and then you get the multiple ones. And the way to find that, I think if you do a get module dash list available or list all available, whatever that is, that will show you have multiple versions in there. Okay. So then it's the thing that you talked about, pulling them out. And so the thing that you have to remember is when you've got a version, do update module instead of install. And that, I think, keeps you out of that problem. But yes, it's a very real thing and very confusing.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is like with the install module command, what's in the remove module, you can specify the version number. So
yes.
So you can specify remove version X or Y, and that's usually what it takes when you're in that cycle of rip, as you start telling it instead of just remove module, you say remove module version number equals blah, 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 and that gets you out of trouble.
Yeah. The other thing about this is there are some commandlets that deal with the module noun that are built into PowerShell, and some commandlets that deal with the module noun that are part of the PowerShell get, which is the pulling things from the gallery and all that. So similar, but not the same. And so knowing when you're messing with modules, are you trying to pull something in from the gallery and install it and all that, or are you trying to deal with something on your local system? Kind of understanding that there's two sets of those and they come for different reasons is helpful as well. But can't say enough good things about the PnP PowerShell. Good stuff going on there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and if your PowerShell doesn't have these module commands, then you're running PowerShell 2 or 3 still, and you really should be running PowerShell 5.1 or later, I guess, right? Because you can run 6 beta now if you're really crazy. I haven't tried that at all, but I know that our buddy Jeff Hicks likes to post about that every time a new version comes out. I'm not ready for beta PowerShell yet.
No, me either. And when I was doing that deck, so I made 2 big significant changes to my Office 365 and PowerShell deck. Number 1 was all the cool new PnP things. The number 2 one far eclipses it. Way cooler. 2 weeks ago, is it now? Microsoft announced they have a PowerShell module for Microsoft Teams. Oh yeah, our great national nightmare is over. We can now manage Microsoft Teams with PowerShell. So they've got an announcement for that, and it's very exciting, very very climactic. But again, it's out in the PowerShell gallery. So install module Microsoft Teams, zips that thing down to your workstation, and you can get ready to do all kinds of fanciness with that.
I keep trying to get myself motivated to make a video on how to do that. And I had nothing. I'm like, what would I do my example? Get dash team tenants. Look, no one's here.
User.
Yeah. They just be like tumbleweeds go across the screen. then I get in trouble for having a bad attitude. So I've decided to avoid it for now.
Probably best. So good stuff. So we've got time for probably one of our other topics down there. We could do E. That'll be pretty quick, and then we got promotion, and then.
I don't even know what E is. So.
All right. Well, if you open up OneNote, there's a.
Well, I mean, I know I can see E. I don't know what those words in that pattern mean.
E is the letter commonly after D and right before F.
Hold on, folks. Everybody just wait a second. I'm going to go read what this is now.
So Jerry Lacanu, who's in the chat room, good friend of Shane and I's, pinged me on Twitter this morning. He has made the move from an iPhone to an Android and was wondering since he knows I'm on Android, wondering what podcast software that I use, what podcasting client. And I use one called Pocket Casts from a company called Shifty Jelly. And that's the one that I've used forever, and I'm a big fan of it. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't need a podcast software already because you've used it to get this one here, But if you're on Android, for sure, I'm a big fan of Pocket Cast. I think it's free. I don't know. I bought it forever ago if it costs money. But the thing that I like about it, I mean, it's got all the things and it's got the functionality that I want. But it also has a web interface and that syncs all up. So if I'm listening to a podcast on my way home, if I'm not quite at the end, I don't have to sit in my garage with the car running and kill myself listening to see how the end of the podcast is. I can come downstairs to my basement and go to my web and finish it up there, and it's all synced up. So big fan of Pocket Casts.
See, or if you got a Tesla, then you can sit in the car and not have to worry about killing yourself in the garage.
Yes. Yes.
Well, but so speaking of viewer contributions, so I want to do Jay then real quick, right? Because that was Dave posted that one. And so it looks like our good buddy Bill Gates, right? I think he's a longtime listener of the show.
One of the first, yeah.
Yeah. He is going to play SimCity in real life. He just bought through one of his, shell companies, 25,000 acres in western Arizona, I believe. And he's going to build a city and set it up, make it a tech city that's built around communication and all the tech in place, as the start instead of trying to retrofit it and see what type of success they can have. So be an interesting project to watch unfold.
Yeah, and I think, there have been other attempts, not for that specific one, but city planning, you here in the States, it's a lot easier because we've only been around for a couple hundred years. Getting the first part figured out is easy. It's how it grows after that gets tough because you got a lot of control over the start, and then So I live in a smallish town. It's 60,000 people, and so I read all the stuff about the city council and zoning and planning, and they have some great ideas and they put some great things in place. And then 12 months later, like all the new houses are going to go here, and then they find out nobody wants to live on that side of town. Everybody wants to live someplace else. So I mean, it's all those things. So it'll be interesting to see how Bill Gates' city turns out.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing, I mean, clearly I know almost nothing about it, but it sounds more like if it's being done correctly, it's more about not the actual city, but trying to go improve and do some tech stuff instead of trying to make this new city where he's mayor, God, omnipotent person, right? It's more about just a place to go and be like, here's all this. I know through some of the work my wife does that there's a lot of money being spent right now on this idea of smart cities and smart city concepts and, government spending a bunch of money. So I'm guessing the idea is this, let's go build a smart city from the ground up. If people want to move there, great. If they don't, either way, they want to get this is what ideal could look like. And like you said, all the poop hits the fan as soon as you try and grow any. But
or new tech comes out or whatever. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. Good job, Bill. We appreciate you. If you need our help, let us know. So in our last minute or so here, shameless self-promotion. Mr. Young, I think you've got the next one up. Where are you going to be?
Well, I'm speaking tomorrow, but I see you deleted that one, so I won't talk about that one.
Sorry about that.
Jerk. So December 5th at 6:30 p.m. California time, I'll be speaking at the Southern Cal user group for PowerShell. I'll be teaching them about SharePoint, so that should be lots of fun. And then May 21st to the 23rd, Todd and I will be at the SharePoint NA conference. The who's who of SharePoint shows and things to go and do. So make sure you get budget for that.
Yep.
Come see us. We're going to have an all-day admin camp. We're going to hopefully suck up to the right people, have some other content while we're there. Yep. You can buy us lunch and dinner because we're poor and we need that.
You can.
Whatever you want to do.
We'll love that. Yeah, and I talked to the folks today. If you register for SharePoint NA, and if you go to SharePointNA.com and register, if you use the referral code Clint, you get $50 off. So that ain't nothing. So you can do that. And the reason it didn't show up in the notes, Shane, is because I went to last podcast, 364, and noticed that there were no links in the promotion ones. And so then I went and got the podcast notes from 362, and it didn't have your thing tomorrow. That's why it...
The hatred is strong with this one, folks. The hatred is strong.
So hopefully we'll see you in Vegas, May 21st through the 23rd. Again, registration code Clint, that is KLIND as in Delta, T as in Tango. Get you $50 off and a handshake from me. And it makes Shane mad when you use it, and that's priceless right there. That's worth way more.
I mean, if we were only going to get one, wouldn't it make sense? I mean, one of our names, everyone learns how to spell like in the first grade. The other one of our names, most adults can't spell, right? Clint, C-L-I-N-T. Or, never mind, not the adult show. I won't spell it the other way. I'm just throwing it out there. Young seems like it would have been the more correct solution.
Had you been the one to email them and ask about it, perhaps your name could have been the one that they used.
Life goals.
All right, get out of here. Go do your thing. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week, the two of us. We will see you then. And I'll try to get these all produced before then.
Doubtful. See you guys.
See ya.